Welcome back to the reconvened meeting of Council that we began on Monday evening. We'll shortly be presented with revised budget proposals from the leader, which will be debated and voted upon under the usual rules of debate procedure. Before we begin, are there any apologies tonight? Councillor Potter?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Alison Holmes and Councillor Matt Holmes.
Thank you. Councillor Nawaz?
Councillor Farid Hussain, Jangir Khan and Joanna West.
Thank you.
Sue Bonser, sorry.
Sue Bonser, right, okay.
And Councillor West. No, not Councillor West, sorry, Sue Bonser.
Right, we got it.
She's probably come, she's not sent her.
All right, you're not apologising for Councillor West, but she might turn up.
She might turn up.
Okay. Councillor Lind, any apologies? Thank you. Reform Group, you're all there. Councillor Ingle, any apologies? Oh, yeah, you're all there. Yeah. Okay. We'll now move to the primary item of business this evening, consideration of the revised budget proposals for the Council. I understand the Leader of the Council will move a report detailing changes to the minute extract initially considered on Monday. We will then debate the revised proposals and consider any further amendments that may be raised in the course of the discussion. The revised papers are available for councillors to view on the Democracy portal. With the exception of the mover of the proposals, all speeches are limited to 5 minutes. All votes on the budget proposals will be recorded. Although this is strictly a continuation of Monday, 10 Tuesday didn't even exist, but if you already spoke on the substantive motion, I'll use my prerogative to allow you to speak again this evening. All right, but just the once. Okay. Before we do, I'd like to invite both the monitoring officer and the chief executive to address the meeting to outline the legal implications and other considerations arising from the council's failure to set a budget on Monday. Who's going to go first?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As councillors are aware, the council is required by law to set a balanced budget before the 11th of March each year. Guidance was provided to all councillors following Monday's meeting, advising them of the consequences of failing to set a budget on Monday and the consequences of not setting a budget by the 11th. As set out in the guidance provided, a failure by council to agree the budget this evening will impact on the council's ability to issue council tax bills in a timely manner, as we will not be able to use the slot booked with our external providers on Saturday. This is likely to result in the council incurring additional costs, as it will mean that bills will be issued late, jeopardising collections commencing in April. The council would also have to pay over council tax receipts to our preceptors in April, even if there is reduced collection due to delay. If the budget is not set this evening, clearly the leader would need to bring back further proposals to council for consideration. If council fails to set a budget by a week on Saturday, the consequences for the council and the citizens of Derby are serious and include the council having no lawfully agreed budget from which to finance functions and operations, the council being unable to require payment of council tax, but still being required to make payments to precepting authorities, the council being unable to enter into new contracts requiring financial input, as to do so would be unlawful on account of there being no available budget, the council defaulting on existing contracts and being subject to penalty provisions, significant damage to the council's political, commercial and general reputation. This would in turn impact upon the willingness of third parties to contract with the council in future, resulting in distorted procurement exercises, less favourable contractual terms for the council, increased budget strain and difficulty complying with best value duties, and a serious impact upon service users, which may be particularly severe in the context of social care. It is also important that councillors understand that in the event of a failure to set a budget by the 11th of March, individual councillors may also be subject to personal liability for failure to set a lawful budget. This is particularly so where those who have rejected the proposals put before council have not put forward any alternative budget proposals or have repeatedly and unreasonably refused to set a budget. Voting against proposals in these circumstances is incompatible with members' obligations under the Code of Conduct and the Localism Act 2011 and is likely to bring the council into disrepute. Failure to set a lawful budget could also be seen to be a breach of members' fiduciary duty towards council taxpayers. Further, notwithstanding the abolition of surcharge, if a councillor's wilful misconduct is found to have caused loss to the council, that councillor may be liable to make good such loss and could be liable for civil action based on the tort of misfeasance in public office or for the crime of misconduct in public office. It is also possible for a member to be liable in negligence and/or breach of statutory duty. Finally, the failure by the council to set a lawful budget in the required time frame or the setting of a budget which was not lawful would trigger statutory reports from both Section 151 officer under Section 114 of the Local Government Finance Act 1988 and myself as the monitoring officer under Section 5 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989. The making of such reports severely restricts the ability of the council to function and would prevent the council from entering into any new agreement which may involve the incurring of expenditure at any time. It would also lead to intervention from central government. In providing this advice, I do not intend to frighten councillors, but to ensure that councillors fully understand the implications of not achieving sufficient consensus this evening to allow a balanced budget to be set. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Emily. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't got a huge amount to add to that this evening. I think Emily has set out very eloquently the issues and associated risks of the council not setting a balanced budget, and I hope all councillors can understand those consequences. And as Emily has quite rightly said, her statement has not been delivered to frighten councillors, but it is to be clear of the consequences to the council, and that is my primary concern as the Chief Executive, the council and its reputation here this evening. Our inability to set a balanced budget earlier this week has already been reported in the national press, in the local government press, and clearly that will have knock-on consequences for the council and the city's reputation with stakeholders, with investors, and most importantly, of course, our local residents and businesses. And I just wanted to elaborate a little bit in terms of Emily's point about the items of potential unlawful expenditure, and as she quite rightly identified, that can lead to the issue of a Section 114 notice. That is where the Section 151 officer has to issue a report to full council to alert the council that it is about to enter into unlawful expenditure. That has potential significant consequences. We have seen very recently a rise in the number of Section 114 reports being issued by local authorities across the sector, and the government have demonstrated their willingness to intervene in those local authorities. As I understand it, they are currently intervening in 6 local authorities in England. My own professional institute, CITFA, have recently been appointed to undertake those reviews, and I guess from my perspective, there is the opportunity that this council could be subject to intervention and even the potential appointment of commissioners, which we've seen elsewhere in the sector, where those individuals effectively take over the running of the council. And so that's clearly not a position that I would want as the Chief Executive, and I've no doubt that you as the elected members of Derby City Council would not want that either. So I'm hoping that we can come to a position this evening where the council is able to set a balanced budget and the council can carry on with its normal business. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Poulter, will you move the updated report, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On Monday evening, I had a little difficulty conveying my voice through the microphone. With your kind permission, I propose that I remain seated to put me in closer proximity to the microphone. Thank you. First thing to say is that I can't really add anything to what we've just heard from the officers in relation to this, other than to express my personal view that in actual fact I think it's incumbent on us all 51 councillors, to set a budget for the benefit of this city, not just the administration, but all 51 of us clearly have a duty to be able to pass a budget, and hopefully tonight. So here we are again, Mr Mayor, a little feeling of deja vu. Doesn't seem that long since Monday. But I think firstly we need to reflect on Monday night's meeting, in that after many years, not years, but months, long days and endless hours of work and debate and prioritisation by officers from every directorate across this council and my cabinet, we were able to put forward the best possible available budget in the prevailing circumstances. I don't think we need to go around the prevailing circumstances again, because everybody knows what the pressures are. Following a lengthy consultation before the budget and before it was presented to the council on Monday, a number of significant adjustments were made to address the major concerns of the public, raised by the public. At Monday night's meeting, unfortunately, the council voted against and voted down proposals to fund the retention of libraries, to increase funding for Derby's Christmas offer and civic events, to continue support for our museums, to retain brown bin collections, and to support neighbourhood agenda including devolved funding. These are just to name a few. In a strange sort of way, I hope that to some degree, some councillors in the chamber on Monday had possibly not given sufficient thought to the possible unintended consequences of their actions in voting on Monday. Opposition groups across this chamber have ignored the opportunity to contribute to the budget process prior to the budget setting meeting. I understand that some people chose to abstain because fundamentally they would never want to be seen to agree with a Conservative proposed budget. But I have to say that in the current circumstances, to abstain or vote against the budget without good reason, for the reasons that have been explained, is not acceptable. On Monday night was therefore the remaining opportunity to influence the budget by way of amendments on issues of concern to members of this council. As we know, there were 3 amendments that were brought in the course of the debate on the evening, and each and every one were debated and voted on by members of the council in the appropriate way. All 3 were rejected on a cross-council basis and therefore discounted and not relevant to tonight's meeting. As they say, they're dead in the water. No other attempts were made to change the content of the budget, and yet members failed on the night to allow the proposed balanced budget to pass. So here we are. Sadly, in the time that's passed since Monday, despite discussions with party leaders, not one of them was able to engage in a way that was pragmatic, sensible, or delivered within the budget envelope proposals that they felt were acceptable, or we were able to accept. and the budget envelope is extremely limited. The council and its members are required to agree a balanced budget, and we've heard that, by the 11th of this month, or face the consequences detailed to us all tonight, both in writing prior to the meeting and verbally tonight as the proceedings began. Mr. Mayor, there is little or no wiggle room in the finances of this council for significant changes. However, just about the only advantage of the delay and the time passing this week as a result of the outcome of Monday night's vote was the opportunity to reflect on our own work around special educational needs provision in the city. And as a result, having me launch this, tonight's agenda, Councillor Williams, the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, will present a budget adjustment in support of presenting the plans for our plans, the city's plans, for dealing with the challenges around special education needs provision in the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is that seconded? Yes. And do you reserve your right to speak later? Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So the development of an effective SEND system for children in Derby has been a key strategic priority for this administration, and we have made considerable progress over the last 5 years. The council will know that in Derby was only one of a relatively small number of local areas to have sufficient progress against all areas in our written statement of action when we were re-inspected by Ofsted and the CQC in 2021. This was a result of the determination of senior leaders across the SEND system to come together and to work to design an improved offer for children and families, which had co-production at the heart in the development and design. We know there is still much to do, and there is. The SEND system is under considerable pressure, with growing numbers of requests for support from parents and carers, and challenges in finding the right place at the right time for children and young people who require our help and support. This means that Derby's budget for SEND, the high needs block, is under extreme pressure. And it's the case in virtually every council across the country. This budget adjustment is in relation to SEND capacity, is timely since today the government published new plans to reform support for children with SEND needs. Whilst we still need to work through the detail and understand exactly what this means for Derby, this will result in extra funding and support, all designed to get the right support at the right time to children and their families. The budget amendment will invest an additional £105,000 into the SEND team to provide an additional 2 full-time SEND officers. This will be funded from the Priority Families Reserve for 2 years until the benefits from the programme transformation is realised. So what does this transformation programme look like? As I explained to Council on Monday night when I was challenged and rejected the motion from the Liberal Democrats on using the £9 million capital funding to build a special school for children with ASD, the Council has worked very closely with school leaders, parents, carers and other stakeholders in the city to understand the challenges and to look at how we can better define and shape a coherent local offer for children and young people, for now and the future. We've developed an effective SEND placement strategy that built on intelligence held within the system to ensure that sufficient special school provision is created within the city through the effective use of our high needs capital allocation and existing school capacity. We have mapped out the number of places for children and young people with SEND that will need to be created over the next 5 years to meet demand and to reduce expenditure on out-of-area placements. We will identify opportunities with the consent of children and their family to transition children and young people back into mainstream places where they no longer require the level of provision delivered within a special school. The approach will also be used to support children where appropriate back into the city from an independent placement, where a place now exists for them to be educated closer to their community and peer groups. The key deliverable through this strategy, and requiring the greatest investment from the 9 million of capital fund allocated, is the development of a new hub and spoke model within special schools and mainstream schools. The flexible model will involve partnering special schools and mainstream schools to use space at the heart of mainstream schools to enable special school places to be delivered. As well as an increased capacity, it will enable greater knowledge and resource sharing between mainstream and special schools and help to develop an inclusive city where children of all needs can be educated together. We are looking at creating 64 special hub and spoke schools for the next 5 years, each year for the next 5 years. In addition, we will create 10 additional special school places per year for the next 5 years. And Cabinet knows this is already underway, with this at Ivy House School, St Clair's Special School and the Kingsmead School. This is how we maximise value from the SEND capital allocation from government, which will impact on more children and young people, rather than on a motion recommending the building of a special school. The budget adjustment reflects the growing demand and capacity in the SEND system across the council and will provide much needed additional capacity to ensure that we continue to make Derby a city that works for children, of all children, with SEND. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Shenker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And can I start by thanking our 3 statutory officers for not just their guidance note yesterday, I believe it was, or maybe Tuesday night, but also their words today, and also take this opportunity to welcome our new 151 officer to the council as well, and I'm sure she'll be excellent in that role. Let's just go back to the budget, and I hear what Councillor Poulter has said, but let's absolutely be clear, we're in this position because of the failure of this administration. He even talks about 51 councillors. There's 49 councillors on this council now, Councillor Poulter. One of your own has quit. And let's not also forget, Mr Mayor, 2 of his members have decided to go on holiday instead of being here to set this budget, to be here and doing their responsible duties, what they're elected to do. So before they're not on holiday. They're not on holiday. They're not on. Mr Mayor, shall we have this debate, or shall we allow these this failed cabinet to continue just making comments?
Please continue, Councillor Shenker, and please observe the usual courtesies.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So let's just accept reality and accept the position that the leader's in. I said on Monday it was an incompetent cabinet, and it's just proven that the actions of the last 2 days have just proven my point again. The situation is stark, as the monitoring officer has outlined. Not being able to pay our bills, our precepts, possibly the wages of officers who work for this authority. Reputationally, it's bad. Politically, it's bad. And it's a situation that can't continue. That's why on Tuesday morning, just so everybody knows, I emailed both the leader of the council and the cabinet member responsible for finance to say, let's talk urgently to see if we can get this council out of the situation it finds itself into. The whole of Tuesday went by and not a single response. So Wednesday morning, nice and early again, I emailed them both again. And it was not until probably gone midday when Councillor Poulter decides to pick the phone up and give me a call. It started off relatively politely, but the call ended with Councillor Poulter slamming the phone. That's how serious he takes his responsibilities, and that's how churlish his actions are. And to be honest, it was later on in the day, probably 3 o'clock, that Councillor Williams reached out and had a more meaningful discussion. But she was going to get back to us, and maybe she'll do that later on this evening. My point, Mr Mayor, is it's a serious situation. It needs serious attitude and commitment to resolve. The definition of insanity is do nothing different and expect the results to be different. That's exactly what Councillor Poulter's done here today. The call it an amendment to the budget, to the MTFP for the provision of 2 SEND full-time officers is welcomed, but it's not really going to make a very bad budget any better. It's still a bad budget. What I want to hear from him is what is he doing differently to try his best to convince the rest of the council to be able to approve the budget this evening.
Thank you. Just to be clear, it's not an amendment, it's an addendum, but we'll let that point go. Does it? Right. Councillor Skelton, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I think the last few days have indeed been interesting. As Councillor Shanker has outlined, the contact that we've had with the leader of the council has not exactly been productive. Normally, when somebody's budget doesn't pass, you would expect that they would then be asking, you know, what can we compromise on and things like that. But no, you know, we on the Liberal Democrat group, we feel very strongly about the 2 amendments that we put forward on Monday, and they were just rubbished by Councillor Poulter. That is not the way to go around trying to get your budget through. You know, the real reason, of course, that Councillor Poulter failed to get a budget through was that 2 of his members are on holiday in Florida. I think we're all baffled about that. So they knew it was budget time, surely. But anyway, you know, important things were not, you know, taken into account at all. We have not had the opportunities over the past past 6 months, to properly input into the budget. It's all been done by the Cabinet and officers behind closed doors. And we obviously didn't know until the papers came out for the December Cabinet meeting, what was actually going to be in the budget. And by that time, you know, it's too late to do major changes. Obviously, as a result of public consultation, they've realised that they've made a bad move as far as libraries are concerned, and have had to make backtracking on that, and a good U-turn that was. And a lot of people are very happy about that. But going back to our amendments, we feel very, very strongly about them, and particularly we note that the way that obviously Councillor Williams has outlined the addendum to the budget this evening, but the strategy that they're pursuing with SEND, and they have been pursuing that for some good few years now, has not produced any financial benefits for the council. In fact, more children are going out of area because more children are actually, or parents of children are taking tribunal action and getting their children the provision that the courts say that they need. And until we recognise that we actually have to adapt our policies to what the courts find acceptable, we aren't really going to get this issue cracked. The other budget amendment, obviously, was to get a very modest sum of £10,000 to allow Historic England to finish the work that has been started already on the grade listing of the gardens and the former golf course at Alistry Hall. Now, yes, a lot of people are very, very on one side or the other of that argument. for various reasons. But the fact is that we shouldn't, as a council, be trying to obstruct the lawful work of Historic England. And it's a great shame that it seems a majority of councillors feel that that's okay. Allistory Hall and the surrounding land is in the World Heritage Site buffer zone, and allowing the destruction of heritage assets can indeed have an impact on the World Heritage Site status. And UNESCO certainly don't kindly to that kind
Councillor Skelton, I'm being very tolerant, but you are going over amendments that were lost. Can you please address
different points?
Can you please address yourself to the matter in hand? Thank you.
So, but council does need to be told that they do have, as we've already heard about, various legal obligations. They also have legal obligations as far as World Heritage Sites are concerned, and the council ought to know that. Mr. Mayor, we are very disappointed with the very slight addendum that has been put to this budget, and it really isn't acceptable, and I believe my colleagues will be talking further later. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Graves. Okay.
I'm sorry, I have spoken before, and I do appreciate, Mr. Mayor, that you're allowing me to speak again on the substantive. I have listened quite sadly to the exchanges from the group leaders this evening, because it really does show to me that we have not got a system within this council where people want to work together. The leader explained that there'd been an enormous amount of work done, hours and hours of work done between officers and cabinet. Now that is also excluding the backbenchers of the largest group here, but the largest group here is not a majority. And if we are going to be working and expecting to get a budget through, there needs to be a mechanism by which you're not just telling everybody you've got to vote with us because we are a whipped group. There needs to be a way of working between parties that people want to participate in. There are individual cabinet members who have on occasion said, please come to my office, come and talk to me about it. And I think that is a really helpful stage. But in practice, we need to have a more formal, recognised way where people can come together and work cross-party on what should be a combined budget. Now, this year, this budget will be delivered for 3/4 of the year by a new administration where a number of the people here will no longer be part of the council. And we do not know from what makeup that will have. And therefore, this year, it's a particularly important year, you would think, for people to want to work cross-party and be willing to work from opposition groups to be able to produce a budget that they have some sort of belief in. I haven't got an answer. I would love to return, because I haven't got an answer because we've rejected it. The answer I would do is to say we should return to committees. And we get this noise saying, oh no, we've tried that. Well, yes, it's 20 years since we changed. It can happen if we chose to happen. It changed about 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, the rules were changed. We can now move back. We have rejected moving back. I still believe that before another 4 years is up, we should do that so that we can work together on a budget that in 4 years' time will be there for a new administration to use post, not this election, but the election in 4 years' time. Before then, I really do hope that officers will consider, as part of the review of our constitution and our standing orders, how they can help us make use of the wisdom of 51 councillors and not a cabinet's worth. That is my wish for the people of Derby and for this council. If there's, I would like, tonight we have an opportunity, we've got something on the table, we do need to pass a budget, but people don't even want to speak about the importance of working together, of having a budget and doing this for the people of Derby.
Right. Yeah. Councillor Lind, was that an indication that you wish to speak? What amendment?
The addendum now.
The addendum. Yeah, okay, please.
Okay, this is really disappointing from the Cabinet member, to be fair. I mean, it was only last year that this council put a bid to the DFE for an ASD special school that was turned down. This is a weak amendment or addendum that we know that what is really needed to plug that gap in the city is more specialist provision, more specialist than what the administration is talking about and what he's offering. This is reactive from a Cabinet member who should have already ensured that we have sufficient officer capacity in Send, and it's really very weak. Now, Derby Conservatives' manifesto for 2022 says they will deliver protection and investment in children's services, ensuring our youngest and oldest residents receive the care and protection they need, building new schools, classrooms and care facilities. Yet here we see that many children and young people aren't getting their needs met and are having to go out of area to do so, and at high cost. And all they can do is propose 2 additional Send officers. We need to be more proactive, not reactive, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other speakers before I ask the seconder? In which case, Councillor Smale, beg your pardon, Councillor Prosser.
I'm just going to be very brief. It's quite clear to me that maybe no deal is done and no extra votes have been gained before this meeting. I find it amazing that the meeting's even been called on the wish that somebody maybe might change a vote. I mean, it might happen, it might well happen, with the pressure applied and the stress put on councillors to pass a budget, but no real attempt has been made to liaise with other groups to bring us together and form a good budget. I'm just absolutely gobsmacked that that would happen and this meeting would be called so quickly, with little effort done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smale, do you wish to speak? Okay, we'll move then to the leader to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too am disappointed in those contributions. I was hoping not to have to wash our dirty linen in public, but being as though certain allegations have been levied against me, I need to clarify the position as to exactly what did go on. And I'll start with Councillor Shanker. He's absolutely right that he was the last person that I went to because him and his group are the least relevant in these circumstances. They choose not to vote either way on the budget because they don't want to be seen to be aligned with a Conservative budget. I understand that. That doesn't affect the actual vote in relation to whether the budget is or isn't passed. I did ring him the day after, a day and a half after the full council meeting. We spoke, and he, as anticipated, clearly stated that he wanted to have a resolution in relation to his obsession around Sinn Féin. Now, clearly, Sinn Féin is not relevant to this budget process, so that was a non-starter, and I told him that, and I asked him, and I gave him numerous occasions, chances to tell me anything else that he wanted to talk about, any other ideas he wanted to negotiate around. and he didn't, and he wouldn't, and as a result, I put the phone down on him because there was no further purpose in the conversation. Let's turn to Councillor Skelton's situation, and she used the word compromise. Well, I'll tell you what happened. I tried to go via the deputy leader to start with to make contact and start negotiation or talk to him because I was trying to be sympathetic to Councillor Skelton's personal circumstances and position. But when we did speak, I did end up speaking to Ruth directly, and the compromise went like this. Hello, Ruth. How are you doing? What is it you're thinking? She said, I want both of my motions passing. I said to her, I told her that those motions had been fully heard and denied across the full council, so they were not negotiable, not starters, non-starters, and we couldn't talk about anything there. And that was the sum total, effectively, of the discussion. Having said that, I did facilitate the leader, the chief executive and senior officers of the council to talk to Ruth again, along with one of her colleagues, at least one of her colleagues, I think, to see if there was any room for negotiation, but there wasn't. The officers got the same result. And then she talked about having no opportunity to affect the budget. I'd always have been open for 6 months during this process. There have been masses of meetings. There's an absolutely open, full consultation on the full details of the budget proposals that she could have worked to. She chose not to, and chose to put forward two motions to full council with no discussion in advance. Consultation, scrutiny. What on earth is scrutiny for? That's what it's there for. If you've got issues around the budget, go to scrutiny with it and deal with it there. But no off it whatsoever. Lucy, I have to say, I understand where you're coming from, and I think your appeals are genuinely held, but it doesn't work like that, Lucy. We don't go around people's offices. Cabinet members don't go to other members' offices seeking their advice or support. So working together cannot be a committee system. There's a paper and there's a proposal coming to this council later on this month, I believe, in relation to a combined authority. And the one thing that's perfectly clear in that arrangement is that there cannot be committee systems in the four main authorities. Nottinghamshire themselves have returned to a strong leader model. So there you are. I'm coming to the end because my time's running out, but I thank Councillor Graves for his very frank contribution when I rang him, and he was not to be moved. He had no idea of compromise. He simply wanted a committee system, and I understand with a view to stopping the combined authority arrangement. Councillor Ingle, we had sensible conversations, but unfortunately, what he wanted was not achievable, and that was the end of that situation. We have no money left. The pot is empty, as was left in a note. There's no money left. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll move to the vote then, which has to be a recorded vote. So I'll hand over to Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies for the delay. When I read your names, please, members, will you indicate if you are for or against the budget as it is proposed by the minute that was considered on Monday, with the addition of the report that has been circulated today detailing changes? So first of all, Councillor Atwell, please.
Abstain.
Councillor Barker. For. Councillor Bonser. Councillor Kerr. Councillor Carr. Councillor Dinser. Councillor Evans. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Froggatt.
Against.
Councillor Graves. Councillor Hassel. Councillor Hazelgrave. Councillor Hussain. Absent. Councillor Seeley-Ringle.
Against.
Councillor Phil Ingle.
Against.
Councillor Jennings. Councillor Shiraz Khan. Councillor Cuss. Councillor Lind.
Abstain.
Councillor Lindsay. Councillor Lonsdale.
Abstain.
Councillor Martin.
Abstain.
Councillor Nater. Councillor Nawaz. Councillor Pandy. Councillor Patterson. Councillor Jerry Pearce. Councillor Tracy Pearce. Councillor Peatfield. Councillor Potter. Councillor Poulter. Councillor Prosser. Councillor Rawson. Councillor Repton. Councillor Ralston. Councillor Sandu. Councillor Shanker. Councillor Skelton.
Abstain.
Councillor Smale. Councillor Swan. Councillor Testro. Councillor Webb. Councillor Whitby. Councillor Williams. And the Mayor, Councillor Wood, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The voting is complete. The motion is passed by 15 votes to 7.
Phew. Item 12. Now we have a budget. Our next item of business is to set the council tax. I will shortly ask for Councillor Smale to move the recommendations in the report. We will then move to the debate. In accordance with CP 71B, voting on the council tax proposals will again be taken as a recorded vote. Councillor Smale, will you move the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's obviously two precepts. There's the social care precept of 2.99%, and then there's the base of 2.0%. Thank you, and I'll move the minute as printed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Poulter. Thank you. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right? Thank you. Any other speakers? In which case, Councillor Poulter, right? In which case, we'll go straight to the vote. Again, recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I read members' names, will you please indicate whether you are for or against the recommendations contained in the updated report that's been circulated this afternoon? Firstly, Councillor Atwell, please.
Abstain.
Councillor Barker. For. Councillor Kerr. Councillor Carr. Councillor Dinser. Councillor Evans. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Froggatt. Councillor Graves. Councillor Hassel. Councillor Hazelgrave. Councillor Hussain. Councillor Seeley-Ringle. Councillor Phil Ingle. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Shiraz Khan. Councillor Cuss. Councillor Lind.
Abstain.
Councillor Lindsay. Councillor Lonsdale.
Abstain.
Councillor Martin.
Abstain.
Councillor Nater. Councillor Nawaz. Councillor Pandy. Councillor Patterson. Councillor Jerry Pearce. Councillor Tracy Pearce. Councillor Peatfield. Councillor Potter, please. Councillor Poulter. Councillor Prosser. Councillor Rawson. Councillor Repton. Councillor Ralston. Councillor Sandu. Councillor Shanker. Councillor Skelton.
Abstain.
Councillor Smale. Councillor Swan. Councillor Testro. Councillor Webb. Councillor Whitby. Councillor Williams. And the Mayor, please, Councillor Wood.
For.
That concludes the voting. The motion is carried by 15 votes to 8.
Thank you for your patience. whilst we've dealt with the business of this meeting, both this evening and Monday. We'll be here again in 3 weeks' time to consider the outcome of the public consultation on the East Midlands Combined Authority. I look forward to seeing you all then, again for one final time. Well, not quite, because I will be here at the AGM, although I won't be a councillor, so I'll see you again.